Aoife Lane,
Yes.
great to see you. Thanks a million for coming in.
Good to be
We have an
here.
exciting week ahead of us next week, or you do in particular.
Yeah.
The Sports Science Guide for Practice
Yeah.
and the framework is being launched after nearly 2 years of work.
Yeah, a little bit more probably, being honest.
So excited.
Yeah, very much so.
I suppose it'd be great to chat through with you, where it all began and why the impetus and why this now, why the need.
Yeah, I suppose, being honest, there's a lot of sports science activity happening for a very long time. So, there's no credit taken for the fact that there's been unbelievably good work by good practitioners, led by brilliant people across all three organisations, from grassroots right the way up. But I suppose there's been lots of little tidbits throughout that have indicated towards maybe we need to put a little bit of shape on this.
Okay.
We can provide some support in terms of presenting a guide or a framework. And that's what we were tasked with doing, essentially. In terms of reference, we're developing a framework for sports science and Gaelic Games. So I suppose the bits that have really tipped us off have been, Gaelic Games is incredibly popular. It's the most popular youth sport, organised sport in primary and post-primary. Up to 50% of our kids are playing hurling or football. Might drop a little bit to second level, but it's still incredible the reach it has. It's still most formal sports participation happening through clubs, even with adults, happens in a Gaelic Games setting. So the impact we have in terms of our games and our sports, in terms of the health and well-being of our members and our communities, is huge. So sports science, we feel, can support that and can add to that. A lot of our kids now are doing muscle strengthening activities. They're playing with their club. They might be doing some inter-county activity. They're playing with their school.
And we've good research now behind that, don't we?
We
it's
have.
Not just anecdotally.
Yeah. Like
there's
some really good research coming soon that'll say that kids are probably playing at least 3 times a week, training with their clubs. A lot of them play at home every day as well. Now that's brilliant. That unstructured, free play is incredibly important. And as I said, they are doing that muscle strengthening activities as well. So there's an awful lot happening, and I suppose there's a big onus then on volunteers and coaches to provide good support around that. So there's lots of hints, I suppose, tipping us off to let's put a little bit of, I suppose, quality and guidance and just a little bit of accuracy, I suppose, around how we're delivering sports science, right from when it's through coaches up to when the practitioners are really taking a leading role at your inter-county level.
So you're supporting the practitioners who are live at the moment and doing a lot of good work, but you're really supporting the coaches, the parents, the guardians, obviously administrators, officers in clubs and counties, because there's questions there, isn't there? People maybe are unsure of this sports science thing.
Very much so, and I suppose the Gaelic Games Coach Report was another brilliant undertaking by all three organisations. It's just so good to get to know our people, and I think over 10,000 coaches engaged with that study across all codes.
That's right, 10,500.
Wow, there you go. Everyone counts, and as far as I know, there's up to 100,000 coaches across Gaelic Games, but 75% of them, I think, would like more information on player development, and player development is inclusive of sports science, but a quarter of them across the different areas would like more information on physical fitness, nutrition, sports psychology. So that's 1 in 4 at least, if you really categorise it as disciplines, but essentially 3 in 4 want to be able to do a little bit more around player development. So I think there is a need, there is a demand
so
for
the message
this.
is we're listening, or you guys listened and you were tasked with putting this together, kind of framework.
Well, the system is listening, and I think you have to be very, I suppose, appreciative of Gaelic Games around taking the responsibility to go and do this. There's incredible people out there, and there's incredible goodwill because they know the value that organisations give. So I think it's really, I'm not sure if there's many framework for sports sciences in any other game, so I think
it's very unique.
Yeah, it is. I think you have to applaud the leadership of Shane, Lizzie, Lynn and the three organisations for backing this.
Who are ye?
You
mentioned ye at the start. Who are ye?
The most important bit of all, the specialists. So again, I really need to commend the three organisations around, I suppose, facilitating this approach where we were able to go and identify really credible, competent people in their disciplines who were very comfortable that the bigger picture and the bigger vision was what was important here. And equally that the values of Gaelic Games was what was important here. So when you have the kind of the remit and the support to go and recruit people who fit that and who can buy into that, are comfortable enough and confident enough to do that. So our approach was to look at the 6, I suppose, applied disciplines of sports science: your athletic development, nutrition, sports psychology, performance analysis, physiotherapy and rehabilitation, and skill acquisition.
Well done.
And we added in one person for good measure, but I'll mention him. But the 6 people then that conform with that were Des Ryan, who has come back from the UK and is now working in Setanta College and is doing incredible work even in the year or so that he's back, in terms of, I suppose sharing and educating and supporting around athletic development in Gaelic Games. Sharon Madigan is the lead nutritionist in Sport Ireland, a Donegal native who again has lots of applied practice. Kate Kirby is in Sport Ireland as well, the lead sports psychologist. Kate is a native of Cork and again very much works in her club in Kilmacud at the minute, but is doing incredible work again from elite right down through to grassroots in clubs. Phil Kearney is a native of Kerry and is based in UL and has done unbelievable work around skill acquisition, and I think there's a huge link there to coaching that I think we can really, really nurture. Denise Martin is a Tyrone native living in Donegal, and Denise has done, when you think of work that drove this, her work in performance analysis probably has given us all inspiration and motivation, and she's incredible value to what we've done in terms of what she's done for that group. Eamon O'Reilly is a native of Cavan, but I think based in Ballyboden now in Dublin, and he's our physio and rehab specialist, and I'm going to get stuck, as is my want.
That's okay.
I think the
Niall Moyna as well, the renowned
that was the guy that we tagged on, but I think it was incredibly important. Niall is just, I suppose, I don't know, it's maybe the real lead voice in terms of sports science, but is so balanced and so, I suppose, respectful of our organisation and brings you back and grounds you, and it's just so credible. I mean, I think when he speaks, you listen. So we were delighted to get Niall on board. So that group has been incredible because, yes,
so that's some team of
it is, but
very experienced people connected to the Gaelic Games, though.
Yeah, and I think they were very respectful around the organisations and what they do. We listened an awful lot to the people in the organisations, but also very committed to their discipline. And lastly, very respectful of each other's discipline. We had some very lively debates, but I think they all enjoyed that interdisciplinary thinking in our group, and that's probably what we're trying to share then outwardly in the application of this framework.
That's very much the spirit of the guide, isn't it? It's very integrated, the values at the heart of it, and that sort of shine through, don't they? Well, that's what the group is really passionate about.
Yeah, and I think the best thing you can ever do is challenge yourself, but to do it in a respectful, probably mindful way, and I think we had that. I think we all learned, I learned an incredible amount from all of them, but I think there was a real mutual respect and shared learning across each of the groups as well.
Credit to you, Aoife, as captain of the ship, steering all that, and just, I suppose, on the process of it, Aoife, like that's not obviously a really, really good group of people and a good team in the making, but that didn't happen overnight. Could you just share maybe the process that you had to go through from coming together as a group and as a team, mapping out what the intentions and the aims and the objectives were to get to the point where you're launching this now next Wednesday? Yeah,
and it always takes time, and I'm impatient, and you want to get things done. We all want change and we want it now, but you always look back then and go, God, it was worth every second of doing it properly and taking your time. But when we set out initially, we really wanted to develop principles and a vision for sports science, because I think when new people come in and things start to develop, if you don't remember why you started in the first place, it can easily get lost. And we took an awful lot of time to shape that properly. Then we, I suppose, moved into a really, important phase of engagement. I think we met over 150 people across the 3 organisations, staff members, coaches, administrators, and just really listened. And the messaging from them has really formed the framework around, they're very strong on our language and our tone around the system might need change. And I think our recommendations really probably reflect that, around supporting clubs to be able to do this themselves. And also sometimes maybe getting some support to do it, but ultimately that the club can take this on and lead within themselves. And as a result then providing the support for coaches to do it.
Did you sense just in that initial engagement any apprehension or fear maybe, or anything like that in your
a little
engagements?
bit, I think, and I suppose it's really good to name it around that piece around the coaching, the role of the coach and the role of the sports science practitioner, and are we creating something where the sports science practitioner is actually leading the way? And that was actually really important. I don't think any of us went in with that intent, but it was really important to hear it and make sure now in the actual version that we've created that we've really strongly, and one of our principles actually says, retain coaching the game as the core of our activity, and the coach still leads, and we're very respectful of that, but the practitioner can support and help. So
that's the number one of 6 principles that
it is, it's incredible.
Is the glue of everything.
I think so. And like I played it. Playing the game is the most important bit, and it's incredibly important that we put the player at the centre of it, and the game, and coaching the game, and the skills within the game. But those sports science pieces probably contribute a lot to the enjoyment of somebody of the game, their technical development, their personal development, which are all linked to their kind of, I suppose their want to stay involved.
So it's 2 years really, isn't it? The guts of, so a fair few meetings, loads of Teams calls or Zoom calls, a couple of in-persons as well. And obviously engaging with the 3 organisations, the LGFA, Camogie Association and the GAA, and making sure everyone was brought along and part of and contributed to it.
Yeah, we would have done, after every meeting, we would have kind of sent a report to Lynn and Shane and Louise Connell at the time. Lizzie Broderick's in place now, and very much kept them abreast and always did check-ins. Like we would have had reports or update meetings then where we brought everybody in, and we also engaged with MSW, who would have representation across the 3 organisations, but would be a traditional, I suppose, have always existed as a subgroup and a very important subgroup of the GAA's kind of operational structures. We had a really good relationship with them, led by Sean Dunyan, and obviously Owen too, who was involved there as well. And obviously, look, I mean, yourself, Martin, in terms of your role being developed and the team you've created, has been a bit of a game changer, because I keep talking about the Gaelic Games system, but this will not work if we don't have the system to deliver it, because we're so overloaded. I'm in my own club, and it's very hard to think of all these things, because you're worried about keeping the pitches and shape and getting the gear for the kids and getting coaches involved. So if we have the people in positions who can help deliver this, and we share it well, which is part of what we're trying to do here, we have a better chance. And I think the growth of your unit, and I suppose within the 3 organisations then, the willingness and the working together in terms of the player pathway, the coach education framework, that's so central to this in terms of making it work.
Yeah, and maybe the exciting thing as well is there's so many good people, good practitioners, brilliant coaches that are, living and breathing a lot of this stuff already, isn't it? And it's maybe shining a light on some of that as well as we go through, as well as building more capacity into the future, and because this is a 2030 vision, isn't it, Aoife?
Yeah, it is. And I suppose one of the things we wanted to do was we created these subgroups for each of the disciplines, and the reason we wanted to do that is kind of what you were saying there about really reaching out and into the people who are working across our codes, across gender, at different levels, geographically. And I think the more you include people and involve them, again, the better chance you have of rollout. So it was really important for us that we had that reach even at that stage. And like, I don't practice this, so you have to look at where your weaknesses are and maybe go out and listen. And equally, a lot of those people helped us in the final stages around sense checking this. Is it up to scratch? And obviously we would have gone through the GAA Games Development Committee as well, and some brilliant people on that, Liam Moggan for example, Malachy McHugh, who were just so helpful in terms of just seeing things that were very important to get right.
Challenging in a constructive way, in a
absolutely,
helpful way.
It's all the better for it. And it is a live document. I think we've referenced that early on in it. Science is, things can change, but I think one of the things we were cognizant of is that we've something to ground us, so that when the new things come along, we're very judicious and careful around how we react, and that we maintain this evidence-informed approach to reacting.
And it's fair to say as well, I mean, this is a best foot forward based on what we currently know, isn't it? It's looking at all the evidence, looking at the research as best we can, listening to the voices of the players, the coaches, the practitioners, the administrators, the parents, the guardians, all those key stakeholders, and trying to put a good, strong framework in place based on what we know now for each stage of the player pathway. So the group was very intentional about that as well, weren't they? And can you chat through a little bit around the what, the who and the how, and the sort of thought process around that?
Yeah, so I suppose as well as putting a policy together, it's very important that you give some substance, and you actually, everybody still wants, well, what do I do and how do I do it?
So what?
Yeah, exactly. So this was hard, like, because you're really asking people to look very closely at what is out there, what's safe, what's appropriate, what's within the values of Gaelic Games, you know, and that, again, that was really important to us. So we created these kind of tables, I suppose, a pathway, a guide to sports science using the player pathway. So what we've produced are, for each stage of the pathway, F1, F2, F3 youths, F3 adult, your club, your 4 T stages, your talent, and then your elite stage. For each of the 6 disciplines, we've a what you should do at each stage: warm-ups, training, growth and maturation, workload principles, healthy eating, a who, as in the coach and the parent and the guardian, the players themselves on occasion, and as you go on, the practitioner. So you're accredited, you're qualified practitioner, and that's really important. Starts to become specified. That's really helpful for administrators, I think, around who should be doing this at what stage. And I think the how is, that's the 2030 piece, you know, with respect to everybody. These are best practice recommendations, and we know that we don't quite have our system where we want it to be, but at least now we have a vision and we have a plan for whoever takes up the baton in different roles, at different levels, in the different organisations around, okay, well, if I am going to do something in sports science now, what was set out here? And let's try and structure it around that. So the 2030 vision is really important, because I think it's going to take us time to build the system that's needed to deliver the who and the what. But I think it's still a very useful guide for people to go, okay, are we doing, is this okay? It's something, maybe a source of comfort for coaches, parents, guardians, for teachers around.
Really reassurance and a reference. So and there's good inspiration and good examples. Say, you mentioned Denise and the performance analysis group or work group. They've done a lot. They've actually have filled in some of those gaps already, haven't they?
They've done this work really, like the pre-data, they've got modules, they've got an accreditation pathway, they have a community of practice. Like, I mean, it's the dream, really. I think all of the other discipline leads are you know, really, it gives them a bit of a vision, especially around even the community of practice thing. Like, I did sports science as a student. You did too, I believe.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, just a while ago. But it's a great profession, and I think we have to be supportive of our graduates as well. And we could really look after the practitioner in terms of having accreditation pathways for them, or respecting ones that are developed elsewhere, and having a community of practice. And I think there's so many good people out there. Ireland is too small for silos. It would be just brilliant to bring it all together a little bit, and having us, working in our own units and helping Galway win All Irelands, but also then coming together and going, what's the benefit? That bigger picture, bigger ideas, I suppose.
We do have an army of graduates and, you know, good people, don't we, across the country and every community in Ireland, and it's nearly trying to link them up or connect them and include them in some way.
And value them. And we've done a bit of work, I suppose, to be fair to the Physio Rehab group, the sports psychology group. You're going to see some work soon, and I know there's more work happening in the other disciplines around engaging with these practitioners. What are their jobs like? Who do they report to? Did they do an interview? Do they have a role profile? And I think everybody within the system could benefit from, I suppose, understanding it first. We're not going to jump in and start proposing changes, but seeking to understand and maybe then moving from there.
And you mentioned an important group a few minutes ago, the administrators. So, you know, we would hear anecdotally around the challenges that clubs have, county boards have. You know, how do I know what good looks like, or how do I know who is good if we do want to engage with a practitioner in a particular discipline or a particular area? Where do I go? Where do I look? Where do I source these people? So this guide, this framework, and what the group has set out around what good should look like should help inform that, and maybe reassure administrators, officers, shouldn't it?
And definitely give us food for thought in terms of delivering upon it. Like, I think this will help, but I think we have ambitions and I suppose commitments around developing role profiles, maybe supporting around recruitment, having databases of practitioners. I think, again, the performance analysis group probably have that, whereas the rest are, you know, even understanding what does a certain qualification mean. You know, with respect, I'm learning a lot more about the administrator role. I mean, it's incredibly laboursome. There's a huge amount of time involved. And I think all of them inclusive, you know, of your managers, your players, still want to create the best environment, and I think we just probably have to look at maybe the tailored support that might be needed for each particular group. Ultimately, we all want to provide a really good opportunity for players to do well and to stay involved in our games. So yeah, maybe this will help us around steering a little bit and guiding and supporting. My sense is, because I did speak to a lot of the administrators as well, to be quite, appreciative, I think, of more work. I think this is probably just the starting point on it.
Okay. Talk to us about Wednesday now. What's going to be? What are you excited about happening next Wednesday?
Getting it done and off my hands. No, I think when you're building something, and when especially with the group of people involved, everyone wants to see outputs, because you sometimes feel like you're on a computer and just talking about doing things. So, and it can look like that. I know even there's people working within Gaelic Games who've been very helpful, who've gone, they're probably thinking at this stage that just fell apart, nothing happened. So I think it's really important that we actually know we did develop something and roll it out. And beyond that, then I suppose talking to you and Lynn and Lizzie around how do we implement this now? How do we move it along? How do we make sure that we strive for better? I'm very, very passionate about the gender piece and ensuring that we do a good job for girls and women. I'm really interested and really keen to. There is a gap. There's a lot we could talk about there, but it's really important that we look at how we bridge that gap as well. And I know everybody's committed to that, and coaching and games is an area who are really, really trying to do a lot of good work there. So I think, we'd really love to do a good job for girls here. This is inclusive of boys, girls, men and women.
Across codes,
very important.
Guide is very, very clear on that.
It is very clear, and it's really important. So I think, again, there's probably a legacy beyond this group where this will be taken on. But the real thing for me is that, as I said earlier, that if there are decisions being made that sports science can help, that this will be the thing that people go to and go, okay, what did they say here? What was relevant then? It might change, but that would be, I suppose, the hope for now, that it's used as the decision-making, I suppose, reference in the context of sports science, at least, up until 2030, and God knows what we'll be doing then.
No, it's fantastic, and credit to you and the group and the team that put it together. And I suppose just on the implementation piece, like that is going to consider. You're going to consider, or you're going to continue, or the group will continue in some shape or form with that same spirit around. It's a collaborative effort. It's not something that the group is coming and saying this is the answer. It's our way or the highway. It's very much putting this, launching this, sharing this guide across the Gaelic Games family, knowing that it's going to be adapted and tweaked and improved upon as we build and grow and develop towards 2030. Is that fair?
Yeah, look, I think clubs and counties all, it's very parochial. There's a real I suppose we all have our own way of doing things, so I think that is the idea here, that there will be a nuance, and we'd love that. I mean, I think important. My club can do it differently to others, and that's great, but this will ground us still all around what's appropriate, what's safe, what's relevant at particular time points. I think as well in Gaelic Games, it branches across health and well-being and the role of our clubs and communities, and also probably the medical piece as well. So this isn't even just about coaching and games. It's across the system of Gaelic Games, branching into those other areas. So it's more complex, I know, but it's just the way everything has gone now. Like, this is almost now branching into administrator and officer training as well. So it's not, I think, you might think that's creating a piece, but I actually think it's actually managing it a bit and maybe having more quality around it when you were more open about it. And I think your point, there's definitely going to be feedback here. This is a living document, and I think one of the things we're all very keen on, you included, is open to comment and change and challenge, but and responding appropriately to if and when that happens.
Really want this to be continue to be and start being a really credible document that people have confidence in referencing and referring to help guide what's going on. Can we just on the club piece, because it does all come back to the club, doesn't it? That whole sustainability piece and self-sufficiency, because that again was in your mind definitely, and the team's mind, the group's mind, right from the start. How would you describe that, being framed in the guide and being framed, within the whole ethos of it, if you like, or the whole spirit of it?
It's still front and centre. I mean, club is core, and we're all working within our clubs, our inter-county players, our club players, even inter-county administrators, coaches. They're all club people, and they'll filter in and out, and will end up in their club setting. So what we've done here is probably really respected the role of your coach, and even within your clubs, people with particular skill sets. Like, there's a lot of young kids now. There's more people going to college than there ever was before. There's really diverse people in communities and clubs, and the club is almost becoming the focal point again. I think the Healthy Club project has been transformational there. Maybe we went through a culture shift for a while, but I think we're back where the club is a community, really. So I suppose what we want to do is get clubs to be able to access and develop themselves to be able to deliver this up to a point when maybe
through
the
good
special
education
sport,
and awareness,
through good education. And I think there's a gap for us to fill. I think we'd all accept that we haven't ticked all that. If we were to say to somebody now, how do you do your psychology informed coaching? Well, we've nothing there for them, but we will, and I think that's our commitment. There's some nice stuff around athletic development, so I think that's number one, that we provide and develop the system, and that's our target. So the clubs can't turn around and go, but we can't do that. And equally, we have to respect that some clubs have resources and they have other, I suppose, factors such as the size and the magnitude of the club that they might need to get some specialist support. And what we're saying in this is, if you're doing that, that support might bring your club to a stage where you can be self-sufficient, but it's really important that support is still has some quality around it, and there's some, I don't want to use the word control because it sounds it sounds controlling because it is, but
there's a sort of a standard there.
That we have some standards that people can look and go, okay, if I am getting somebody to come in and do X, these are the things I should be mindful of. I think you can get a lot of criticisms in science when you maybe fall into the lower quality or the maybe less well respected, less credible, whereas we want really good up-to-date scientific principles informing good practice. So yes, maintaining those values within the club setting, but respecting that on occasion support might be needed for lots of different reasons. It isn't black and white anymore, unfortunately, but ultimately that the club feels that there's support there for them to be able to do this themselves.
And as per the youth participation study you referenced, I mean, the big thing is the player retention piece as well, isn't it? So if the club is the core and we're trying to have as many players as possible staying within Gaelic Games for as long as possible, having the best or as good an environment as we can for the players in our community, our communities is really important. And sports science has a role to play in that. It
does, and like the complexity of the player environment now, I think up to half of our players at any given time are playing up. More girls than boys actually because of numbers, so they're also playing in school, and because of the nature of our talent system now, we really want to give as many opportunities, so there's more playing opportunities, which means that there's more formal structured training environments, and then you've kids probably more mindful of doing some muscle strengthening activity, so things do change and you have to react. You can't just say we'll do it the way we always did it. The context is different, and I think this youth participation study will be very useful to actually quantify that and describe that. It is a once-off, it is a survey, it is a study, but it's a really good window, like the coaching survey was, into what's actually happening and how do we kind of use this in terms of our decision making.
That's the player's voice, isn't it?
Incredibly so, yeah. And I think players within the study, they're asked what's their main motive for playing Gaelic Games, and it would actually do you good to look at it, because their big reason for playing, and parents feel this too, I think, based on work Munster GA did, is to be fit and healthy. I was pleasantly surprised that was the number one motive. Then the second one is they literally just love Gaelic Games. It's the main reason they stick with that sport, and also then just to have fun. So I think that's such a good reflection on the organisations that's the case. A lot of them play other sports too, over half. So you've that as well. When we were kids, it was probably just one sport, but now
so much choice now.
It is. It has changed. Great, it is. And
helping them with the balance is important.
Yeah. So you need that education in their parents, their coaches, their club to be able to kind of support them through that. And equally at the other end of the pathway, the elite inter-county player, there's a lot going on there too. They give a lot of time to their sport. The girls probably don't experience the same level of sport within their environment then. And, they're the shop window. They're actually, I think the report will say that the biggest role model for youth players in terms of participating in Gaelic Games. So they're incredibly valuable, and we should really bring them into this picture around, I suppose, really cherishing that role that they can play and the influence they can bring back into their club.
As role models.
Exactly, it's massively important,
So there's a lot there, and it's not. It's a start nearly, or it's the continuation of the journey on Wednesday, isn't it? What can we expect output wise over the next couple of weeks and months? Or there is things in press at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the pathway cards, we're delighted to have them ready now, because that is probably the real substance around the whole thing. We'll hopefully soon have a guide for practice for athletic development. There's a paper published, and we'll use that to inform.
A position statement.
Just probably bringing to life a little bit more. Athletic development is very topical, around training load, around workload, around time off, unstructured play. I think it's really important that we provide a statement of leadership on that. I think there's a nutrition publication in print as well, looking at what's happening in Gaelic Games for men and women. There's a really nice study on sports psychology in press, from what I believe. And again, the thing about these things is we want to be very clear that these will inform decisions. It's not about my opinion or Kate Kirby's opinion, that we've really taken a patient approach to it. There's a new injury surveillance system that's getting up and running. Eamon O'Reilly has worked with that, with the MSW, with Liam Moffat and a few others there. I think it'll work across codes as well. Just doing a better job around that. Performance analysis, I think, are reviewing all of their accreditation and their content. So incredible work there. So I think we can be really pleased that there will be outputs and there will be a legacy of activity moving forward. I think the other thing is there's so much good activity in terms of practice, but research as well. And hopefully by the end of the year, we might have a little bit of an opportunity to start to pull all that. There's a lot of really good work happening within the coaching games around starting to harness that and maybe streamline it a little bit and be maybe a more coordinated approach to... Yeah,
more cohesive approach maybe, Well, that's there is an awful lot of good work going on in I know in coaching and coach development and the various awards. We have the Introduction to Coaching Gaelic Games, the Award 1s and Award 2s across the various organisations, where aspects of sports science is catered for in a way, but we know that it needs to be updated and it needs to be more accessible maybe, and maybe simplified in some cases, and coaches that are exposed to those given the tools and the know-how, if you like, to implement it within their clubs and communities, so there's an opportunity there.
There is, and I think it would be, this is a challenge for Gaelic Games. I'm almost given the challenge saying, we all need to step up. The organisation needs to step up and say, how do we bridge the gap between the boys and the girls? How do we get that coach education running? How do we get a national level 1 athletic development course? How do we develop a psychology informed coaching module? And that's a push back at the powers that be, I suppose, to say this is actually important. Everybody wants it. We have a framework here now, and we need to deliver upon it. And it isn't easy, but there are incredible people working, around up and down and across all codes. But it is a challenge, and I'm a volunteer as much as all the others going. Come on now, let's step up and let's deliver upon this. And the people are in place now as well, with your own group and across the organisation. So,
exciting times, very exciting times. Aoife, thanks for your time today. It's only a part of the journey, and really looking forward now to seeing the outputs on Wednesday. And it's been a pleasure and an honour to support in the background the brilliant work that you and your leadership and the group have done. So, Thank you, and good night.
Thanks, Martin.
Cheers, Aoife.